Have you ever thought to yourself, I'm going to make those changes of health or wealth, I'm going to put in some new habits, I'm going to make some New Year's resolutions, and that when the rubber hits the road, you get started and then suddenly it all cranks down because one of the things we forget to put in place is accountability. My name is Ben Netterfield, I'm a leadership coach, and in this video I hope to share with you some of the truths about making sure if you want to make those changes that you actually are accountable to yourself. It's one of the things that we don't talk about very much. Or accountable is actually where excuses go to die. And this is an important thing because sometimes we can be overzealous with our accountability and we see ourselves being unrealistic about what we're doing. So then we beat ourselves up about not only not doing the thing, but then not being able to do the thing. And it's understanding how to be accountable and yet kind enough to understand and be flexible and change our plans if we need to. So there's four main ways that we can use accountability. One of the first steps is looking at how we can have a professional help us out. So we've got a dietitian, we're using the professional dietitian or a PT person or a fitness person or anything like that that allows us to put in a calendar date and we've got to show up, be there, make ourselves accountable to that person. The second way is where we can have a professional structure to what we're trying to do. In other words, we've signed ourselves up to a diet program, we're making ourselves accountable that way. Sometimes they're quite intense in how they can keep you accountable to what you're trying to do, and others are much more if it's an online presence. However, those things can help us move towards and achieve the goals that we want to do. And sometimes we need that accountability that's external to us in a professional sense, that we can't allow ourselves not to show up, and we've just got to get the thing rolling. So sometimes this is a really important thing, especially when we're coming from a very low ebb. And as long as the people that we've actually asked to help us have a good, clear understanding of how we need to move from a very basic low sense through to just that first step of making a goal and making a new habit. The third thing can actually be one of the best and most long-term motivating, where we have a group of friends, a tribe around us that we can use to help us keep us all motivated. There's no way that any one person is going to be always motivated all the time to keep going. And yet if we have a tribe of people that can say to us, yep, let's all make sure we get going for the walk today, let's all help ourselves when one of us is feeling in a low mood to get going and be out there. This is often a fantastic way to be inclusive. As humans, we often crave that social interaction to actually keep us on track to our goals and the bigger picture. And also, so long as we have that right tribe, they can also be kind enough to understand that when we are having difficulties, they can help us, support us through that, to adjust with us, and yet keep us on track for the bigger, more important, overall overarching goal and the big steps and the little steps that go towards that. So then the fourth thing is the only person that we have to be accountable to is ourselves. And this can be quite daunting because often when we think of accountability, if we think of it as athletes or as business, it's making sure that no matter what we show up. And that's often where in situations where that is the only thing that matters in our lives. So if we're training for something in particular, then that showing up is all that matters. I must show up. I have to show up. There's no other excuses for it. And yet most of life isn't about that. Most of life is having to juggle things, making sure we can get other things done, making sure we can show up for our family, making sure we can show up for work, making sure that we can show up in any number of different ways. So sometimes still having a goal that we want to succeed to is actually quite a hard thing to do, because once the rubber hits the road, away from that holiday setting, with sometimes when we've made the big thought of I make a New Year's resolution to change my health, to change my spending habits, all those things, once we actually go back into the grind of life and we've got to juggle things around, being accountable to ourselves is the most important person. If we really want that goal to keep going and keep succeeding, then we've got to find a way of moving forward. And the only way accountability actually genuinely works is, one, if we help journal it, and two, we're honest with ourselves. Honest with why we didn't show up, honest with how we should have shown up, honest with how we can make changes to actually keep showing up if that's the thing we want to do, and also to change how we want to achieve the goal. Is it too big? Have we made too big a chunk of it? What can we do to change it? Accountability and honesty go hand in hand, and it's also, if we do that properly, that's also where excuses go to die. Sometimes we will have times where it is impossible to get things done, and if that's really what's happened and that's truthfully what's happened, that's fine. We can sit down, we can press pause, we can adjust, but press pause for a week, not for a month. Change something. If it hasn't worked for 3 times in a row, don't give up on it completely. If it's something you want to do, then make sure you actually take the effort, and make the changes. One of the important things to remember about accountability is to be truthful with yourself, making sure that you may have very valid excuses, you may have very valid reasons for not being able to do it. So that means change the plan. If you still want something to happen, don't just drop it completely. Look at ways to make it work. If you've been journaling, you'll notice things that have been working, things that haven't been working. If you've thought, I want to go for a run first thing in the morning, every morning you can't get out of bed. Is it because the why isn't big enough? Or is it because the mornings aren't for you? Or, as importantly, have you been self-sabotaging the night? In other words, I'm going for a run in the morning and yet I'm making myself stay up late, so I'm already self-sabotaging. Is your intention to actually be there in the morning, or are you actually already self-sabotaging? So my name is Ben Netherfield, I'm a leadership coach, and please leave me comments about what has worked for you. One of the fun things that's worked for me that I wouldn't have expected is when I got this Apple Watch, and the thought of closing out rings, I made it competitive with myself. It's something I wouldn't have expected. It's something I've been trying to do to make myself more active, more mobile. I made the rings realistic, I started improving on the rings, and then it moved out from there. Find the thing that will actually make it work for you. Sometimes we sort around for lots of different things of how we can get the project, the ambition, the acknowledgement of how to make it work going. Sometimes it will come in unexpected ways. For some people it is finding it, doing it with friends. It is a social activity. It's much more fun. Some people who want to do it by themselves but have to actually acknowledge, well, then they have to be very truthful and making sure they're accountable to themselves. Sometimes in some points of your life, it's really hard to be accountable. So you leave that to others. You leave it to a professional to make you accountable. Sure, it costs you more money, but if it gets you going, gets you habit starting, then that's worth it in the long run, isn't it? If the goal you want is to change, and that change is actually making it happen, why wouldn't you do it? Please leave a comment for me how you made yourself accountable, how you used a journal, or how you sometimes even used a buddy journal where you actually wrote to each other in a journal, and that helped you each be accountable to each other and making sure that you still were able to be encouraging and kind to each other. Please like and subscribe, it really helps the channel, and I hope to see you on the next one, which is about making sure you understand the intent and also how fear sometimes locks us from actually achieving the thing that we want to do. Good luck, take care, and I'll see you on the next one.